Good morning or afternoon, depending upon your East or West Coast orientation today. My name is Nicole Mead. I'm with the SimpleView marketing team. I just wanted to let you know a few logistics for today. We are recording this webinar and it will be sent to you this afternoon along with the deck. We have today Chris and Stacy from SimpleView and Andreas from Destinations International, and they are going to be presenting on our topic. And I will pass it over to Stacy. If you have any questions, concerns, use the chat box. Any technical difficulties, let us know afterwards. If you have any questions, it's SimpleView Marketing, or it's marketing@simpleviewinc.com. But I'll let you guys take it over from here.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Stacy here. And first, I want to say happy Cinco de Mayo. And I hope everybody is safe at home. The good news is, if you're on this webinar, you are probably still employed and working, and that's good. The bad news is that these are difficult and unique times. So we're here today to bring you guys some tools that might help you in your current situation that I think could be vital to your recovery process. But first off, I would like to know, if you would, please put in the chat your name and your title. We kind of want to see what kind of people are joining us today, and who's here and listening, and how, so we can better help you and maybe answer questions more along the lines of your position. So if you can, go ahead and enter that in the chat. While you're doing that, we'll go ahead and move through. Obviously, Chris and I are with SimpleView, and then we are joined by Andreas today from Destinations International. He's our EIC expert. And today we want to talk about Mint and EIC and give you a quick overview. We're not going to do an in-depth training, but we're going to talk about best practices and just remind you of the tools that are there and how they could possibly help you during this unique time. First, we're going to talk about DI and SimpleView's relationship. Many of you probably already are aware of that relationship. We're going to talk about how you can use Mint for prospecting. We're going to do an overview of the CRM Mint integration, give you kind of an idea of where Mint is going and our future roadmap. And then Chris is going to jump in on EIC and give you an overview of that amazing tool and EIC reporting examples. And I know Andreas is here to offer us some best practices as well. So it should be a very informative webinar for you. And please feel free at any time to put questions into the chat. Is Nicole monitoring the questions?
I am, and you guys can see them as well, but I'll be monitoring them for both technical issues and then if I need to interrupt you guys for something urgent.
Perfect. So you'll just give us a shout out if there's something we need to answer. So that'll be perfect. Okay, so let's get started. First, I want to talk about Mint Plus in SimpleView and our now joint venture. Destination International has joined with us at SimpleView to build the next generation of Mint. We will be providing an industry solution that will serve the world's largest meeting history database. Many of you probably are already completely aware of what Mint is, but if not, I'm going to give you a breakdown of what it offers. So if it's not a tool you're using, you can reach out to your account manager at SimpleView and ask about it. Mint Plus will continue to be a tool of Destinations International, but it will be powered by SimpleView. This is a new partnership just in recognition that SimpleView has the resources to take the Mint Plus product to that next level and improve the data and increase the data. And so our two organizations are going to work together to reimagine and re-engineer this software over the next 12 months. Now, the next generation of Mint is going to have some pretty cool new features that we've been talking about over the last year. We're going to incorporate new machine learning functionality that will help increase, organize, and augment the data, which, if I translate that, that just means you're going to have more data and cleaner data, so that when you're doing searches and queries, you're getting the results you're looking for. We're also going to do reduced manual entry. So if you have that CRM integration, Hopefully the sharing features will be easier, so for you to report out and meet those requirements and those conditions that you signed in on. We're working to incorporate artificial intelligence technology that will do the work of searching and curating leads for subscribers. And then we're also working on new powerful segmentation that will organize your lead scoring opportunities, which means you're going to have elevated quality of data, and you'll be able to better decide what meetings are beneficial to your area. So these are all exciting improvements that we're currently working on, and we're excited to hopefully deliver within this next year. This new joint venture is going to just further enable DI to help destinations excel and ensure that your DMOs are successful. And although Chris is covering the EIC portion, I just want to commend EIC for all of the work that they've done. And I just want to say SimpleView is super grateful to have the integrations with each of the modules that you guys are releasing. So I have to give you your kudos for that. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can definitely add on to that. You know, the Destinies International crew, obviously we've been working a lot here together. And doing a lot pretty quickly. You know, it was really cool that Andreas saw the invites going out for this yesterday and asked if he could sit in so we can get a little bit of insight for their side. And I think we've been contributing on, you know, some of theirs as well. So it's just been an interesting time, and this partnership is a really cool opportunity. We've had these meetings of the minds every couple of weeks where we get in a room and we've got everybody from, you know, Shimo that many of you know on the To Synergize side. You can see that kind of from the hotel side. We've got the great team over at the DI that knows that the international market as well as anybody. And then now we've got our crew, and again, the crew, I believe it's Digital Metal that we're working with on some of these things as well. So it's a great collaborative effort. It's something that, you know, we've worked really hard to be in this position, to be able to work for the industry as a whole, not just for SimpleView specific customers, an example like Mint and EIC. Very cool.
Yeah, it's been great working with that team. I have enjoyed it. Okay, so next let's just talk about what does Mint currently offer in its current format. And again, if you're not familiar with Mint, Mint is a DMO industry collective database that is now powered by SimpleView. And in partnership with DI, we have over 130 DMOs currently contributing to this booking and history data, which means that you're getting data input into this database, into this collective database that you're looking to pull out. It's not just random data. We have information on organizations, meetings, and contacts that have been added by your DMOs, and it is also supplemented by CBIS. And we're actually working on, SimpleView is actually working on incorporating and bringing in additional data and cleaning that data as well. So it's just becoming an increased and better tool for you guys. There are more than 72,000 records containing detailed meeting information, including histories and futures. Or not, we don't call them futures, sorry, in Mint. They, what do they call them? Sorry. that's a SimpleView term. But basically just all of that.
That's a good one even to mention. There are some things that now we're able to work so closely together that we will be able to tighten up in further versions. We might touch on that a little bit in the roadmap slide when we get further along, but we do see that the system is used by hoteliers and DMOs in some cases, and we obviously have differing language, but a great opportunity to bring all that stuff back here together. So.
Yeah, to have one common language. And I think the gem of Mint is that we have not only search functions where you can find information on any organization, meeting, or contact and do research with it, but also you have a query builder, which is Mint's unique prospecting tool, and it allows you to pull event information in using data fields that are important to you in your area. Some of you I know might be looking for meetings with certain specific sizes. You're looking to fill certain holes, whatever, but you get to choose, and I'm going to show you today some of those choices you have to select to pull up lists of meetings that might meet the criteria you need, especially in this recovery process. So let's talk about how DMOs can use Mint right now during this unique time and how it could be most beneficial to you, because probably most of you are not actively selling at the moment. So you're probably looking for sources to identify and prospect for short-term business. And I think Mint can be a great tool for you right now. But I think it's important that we talk about how in these times right now, we need to be thinking creatively and we need to be thinking sympathetically. You're probably not actively selling to people or looking to sell meetings, but you can be warming your audience. So while you might not be in that space to sell something, you can warm your audience by identifying potential customers, future customers, and providing essential information about your area. Like I know some places are just sharing out what is the COVID requirements in your area, and like when are bans being lifted, how is that looking, how is that affecting your area. So while you might not be able to sell right now, you can still be reaching out and finding those potential customers so that when you are ready, you've already established that relationship. Another way you could be using Mint right now is that you could be identifying marketplaces as they emerge. So one of the tools in the Query Builder is that you can look by marketplace. I know that many of your organizations have been reduced in numbers, and probably many of you are taking on new marketplaces and taking on the responsibility of new marketplaces. So our Query Builder tool could help you identify meetings that are that fall under those marketplaces. So you can be doing that research as well right now. You could also maybe be identifying meetings by their zip code or region. So many of the bigger DMOs are thinking that, and I think this is pretty on point, that you will be starting off, meetings will begin to emerge on a very local basis, and then that will go out into the macro. Eventually, you'll do regional, national, and then international. So you're going to want to be searching for meetings by zip code or by region, and Mint allows you to do that as well. So you could be pulling up lists of meetings based on your area or local area, maybe state.
Yeah.
So for example,
go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just going to agree. I think that's a really good distinction to make as we're at this point, is that, Mint is definitely there for you to manage and prospect, leads. I should say that, I guess, a little bit different. In these early stages, it's about prospecting and research. And I think you hit it right on the head that while we are seeing the trends that we're going to start local and that we're going to grow out, well, the opportunity for you to know what is available in your local region, what is available in that next size region, that's what Mint is for. And the idea is that you can pull that information into CRM so that you can research and so that you can continue your prospecting. We hear it all the time, like, oh, there's this meeting that's, in the city next door. Why have we never pursued that? Why have we never won it? Well, those things often happen outside of CRM, so your team doesn't have that intelligence. So to Stacy's point, find out about some cool meetings that are happening within 100 square miles, to start by not pitching them necessarily, but building that relationship. So we'll see, we're going to pull them into CRM so you can send them some marketing communications. You can send them a gift and track that via your inventory module. You might buy them dinner sometime if things start going right over the next couple of months, and we want to be able to track that. Then if they decide they want to pursue your destination or not, that's important tracking that's inside of the system. Even if they decide they don't want to move or that they can't go forward, that's great stuff for you. It's also, and I guess my last piece on that is, Stacy said it, this is a community thing. It's one of those things where we are looking out for other destinations, and while we're all competing against each other in some ways, this is an opportunity to really help each other out. So one of the things that'll be really important, and I'm sure I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, is that we are pushing up accurate information, that we're taking the time to review, to pull down accurate information, because again, it's all about taking care of our own community, but it is about tourism as a whole. And these are the tools I think we'll see with both EIC and Mint. They can help us once we start to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel to hopefully rush through that door, you know what I mean, and hit the ground running in a lot of cases. So some really good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So with the focus of research and the focus of relationship building right now, There's some great things that you can do. And I guess I also want to come back and just say, if you have that Mint integration in your CRM, that means you also can be logging into the Mint system, which I'm going to show you here in a second. And if you haven't been logging into the Mint system, like this is a tool that we've been tracking data on right now. And this is the tool that our biggest DMOs are using exponentially right now. So you should be using this tool. It's going to be crucial in your recovery, and it's going to be crucial as you're coming out of this. So,
and hopefully we're seeing here too, just looking at you guys, nice enough to put in, your names and titles, and good to see like Andrea, CRM admin in Fort Worth, and we got folks like, Jane in Visit Phoenix, who's director of convention services. We've got services managers like Paulo in Arlington. So it's, while we have different roles, and that was kind of the point of asking it, these pieces might fit into your role. They might fit into a coworker's role. So are you the person who should be researching and prospecting? Do you need to direct somebody to that? Because we think sometimes, and again, to Stacy's point, there are some of you that probably have never logged into Mint, and looking at the list of folks on the line here, some of you haven't. Looking at your titles, I'm thinking inside, like, why haven't they? They probably should. And it usually comes from, we don't know why or what's the value of it. Hopefully we see that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just remember, this is a powerful prospecting tool for you. Some of the other things that you guys could be doing is that you might want to do some research on unfamiliar organizations that are doing meetings or have done meetings in the past in your area that you aren't aware of. You can do searches on them just to learn more about their organization. Or you could also, the more common use of it is to fill holes in your calendar by looking by meeting dates or preferred months. So I want to show you guys just really quick. I want to just walk you through kind of a fast track so you can see
Let's do it.
What that looks like from the Mint homepage. So when you're logged into Mint, you can do that search if there's an organization that you know of that you want to learn more about, you can put it in and get the information on it. So if I were to look up SimpleView and pull that up, oh, it's gonna make me log in, of course. Sorry about that. So try that again. It never goes as smooth as you would want it to, does it?
Hey, that wasn't bad.
So when I do a search for an organization, it'll bring me up the hierarchy of records. I get to see the organizations that match, and I get to see meetings that match that criteria, and I also get to see the contacts that match within that criteria. So you can dig down and drill down into any one of those records based on what you're interested in finding. That's super easy. You can also, if you want, you can come over here to our directories and you can look by just organizations in the list alphabetically. You can search by marketplace or by market segments. And that's true for any one of these directories, the organizations, the meetings, or the contacts. Okay, so just remember.
Yeah, I just think that's a good example of when you've heard of a meeting in a neighboring city. You've heard or you've thought of a piece of business that came to your town 10 years ago. You haven't heard from them. It's been crickets in a while. And you're just thinking, hey, I'm looking for the National Association of Jugglers. We know a little bit about them. We can use some of these simple search tools to identify them. Then again, we're going to pull that into CRM to start managing that record.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Thank you. And then the gem of Mint is the query builder. So you would come up to the top and click on query. And this gives you 3 different ways that you can pull in information to build that list. Now, I want to say to anybody who has not used Mint very much in the past, it's better to make your search criteria smaller, not bring in all kinds of different data points if you want a larger list. Okay, the more data points you bring in to your search, the smaller and more refined your list gets. So it depends on what your purpose is and what you're looking for. But like I said earlier, if you did meeting location, say you're wanting to search regionally or you're wanting to search by a zip code, you can put in either a city, a state, a zip code. You can put in multiple zip codes, just separating them by commas. If you want, you can look by an organization. What is that organization? Where is it located? Here's where you would search by those market segments. If you're one of those people who's trying to identify new marketplaces, then you can come and perform a search, use it by checking off any of those market segments that would apply to you. And then again, the more popular, I think, use based on our research is that a lot of you like to search by the preferred month, or you might want to search by your regions. And if you're not sure what the regions are, we have a list here of what falls into what region, so that will help you. But say I just want to see all meetings that are being held in the West, and I'm going to click search. That's going to give me a huge list, right? I get 31,000 meetings that are being held on the left. So that's probably too much to start with, but I can go back to my query and I can start refining that list, right? So I know I want to be in the West, but maybe I just want to I want to look in some of the bigger areas, Denver. Maybe we want to go to San Diego. And I don't know why we want to do it that way, but for demonstration purposes, then we've reduced it down to 4,753 meetings. So I think it's just important. You can build queries off of any of those 3 areas and sections. You can pull in information and data from any of those, but just be aware that the more data points you pull in, the smaller your preferences get, or the smaller your lists get. So be aware of that. I also want to point out, for some of you, I know that meeting size is an issue and you are looking for specific sizes. So you can also come in and enter your ranges. And it's best to do by smaller than or larger than. You don't want to put like a specific number in. But you can do by peak rooms, anything. Really, you can search by any data point that would probably be important to your DMO and your area. So if you have questions about any of that, there's this awesome how-to section in the top, and you can find different information on building queries. So if you click on the How Mint Supports Prospecting, that will explain to you the query process. But then if you come down to Finding Multiple Records Query, it will give you actually a run through of how to use it in each of those sections. Okay. So that would be just my quick little overview. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, and while folks are thinking, this is where, CRM then steps up, you're reviewing, you're doing, and you're looking for you're identifying the records you then want to pull into your CRM system. If there's anybody out there who doesn't have, SimpleView CRM, there is an option to export, which most CRM databases then have the option to import that information back in. So you should be able to take over from there. And now I think I just need the screen, right?
Yes, you do. But now I have to figure out how to.
I got it.
Are we switching over to Chris? We do have one quick question from True.
Sure.
In the future, will Mint include international meetings? Is that something you guys are looking into?
I can say that, with the, the updates, and I guess, Andreas might be able to speak to this even a little bit better. The DI team has grown and looking to be more of an international resource. So there are international destinations that are currently contributing to DI, but I think that's probably limited to North America, the Caribbean at this point.
I would just say, with the retooling and relooking at everything, sort of all those type of things are not meant to be looked at to improve upon Mint from where it was. A lot of those existing market segments, countries and all that kind of stuff were set up long ago, and now's the best time ever to sort of relook at retooling how we can better them.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, some of the stuff, what I want to do is now kind of show you guys the CRM side of things. And, I realized that Stacy was going through this, that I'm probably going to come back to this slide as we go through, because the team is working to identify some things to enhance the process. And while we saw there, Stacy was identifying that we're going to do some research inside of Mint. Then now we are seeing in the current version how we're going to go to Mint and pull that stuff back in. But I'm going to come back to this because I think once you see the current process, we are all going to agree on some of the things that need to be improved on. And then we'll talk about where we're going with some of those improvements. I'm going to go through a couple slides and I'm going to jump in and show you guys live. So what we saw is, again, the first idea is that we want to pull in fresh accounts, contacts, profiles, and histories from Mint, and we will have the opportunity to do just that. But we also want to make sure that our data is staying up to date and current based on the work that other destinations may be doing. So what happens in the system is once it does get pulled in, if somebody does make updates to the account, well, we're going to have the opportunity to look at those accounts, those contacts that have changes pending. Again, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. Maybe the folks in Mesa pulled down the same accounts, changed the phone number and the address, then pushed it back up. Well, when I log in tomorrow, there's going to be a little identifier that says, hey, somebody has changed this information. You want to review it and take the time to review it and choose to apply those changes in your database or to deny. And I can say, as I kind of alluded to it, but one of the things that we really need to work on as a community, again, is making sure we are reviewing other destinations updates, and if they are accurate, pulling them, and making sure, again, that we're pushing accurate information back up for the community to address. So whether it is, again, pulling in a fresh account, or in this screenshot, looking at an account that has some updates, and up there at the top, we see what has changed, the opportunity to update those or not. But once we've now thinking about it, we're going to pull in that account contact profile, and I'll show some of the tools that I mentioned that we're going to quickly, shoot off, maybe send them a gift. We're going to track our phone calls and send out our email marketing message. Well, let's say this gets all the way up to the point where we are successful in getting a bid put together for this organization. We then are successful in winning that piece of business. Well, what happens is when you pull in a new account and the profile, and Stacy mentioned it, histories and whatever we're calling futures here, I don't know either. Well, histories and futures are definite leads. That's information from a definite lead record in some destination, possibly yours, but possibly in another. So what that means is you're pulling in histories and futures, which are actually definite bookings from, again, your community or another. So we want to make sure that stuff's in there. So the idea is once your lead goes definite and it meets Mint's criteria, there are a few things that need to meet certain criteria to be eligible, and we'll show that off. Well, we're going to make sure we're sending that lead to Mint. Well, then another thing that sometimes gets missed is after the group comes and goes, well, we're going to collect pickup information. Well, that's going to change the numbers, and we're going to want to push that pickup information up again. So what we're trying to improve on is when we pull things down, as an example, we'll see it. We have to pull the account, the contact, the profile, the history, a few different steps. When we're pushing up a completed lead, we have to push it at booking date. Then once they've come and gone and pickup has been entered. So just a couple of quick things on that. Those are two of the things that we're helping out with these new reports that are getting uploaded into the system in about a month. This is, again, Jessica Johnson and the CRM support team. We're working really hard to make these updates on the CRM side and SimpleView side. So what we're going to do is we're going to create two reports, and I'll show them real quick. But think about step one, or the first one that I mentioned. There are all these accounts that have updates pending. Well, right now, you just kind of have to stumble upon that. Like you just click on an account, and there'll be a little message that says you need to review this account. Well, those can then skew, they can go out of date, you can get lost in the process. So a new report here's a list of every account that has a pending update. Check them out, batch them out, take care of that in mass. Well, then Mint eligible leads, same type of a thing. What happens during the process when we are either supposed to send it when it goes definite and we are supposed to send it when it goes pickup? Well, sometimes the sales manager who marks it as definite is not the person who has access to Mint. So they have to ask somebody else. Same deal. You're not the pickup manager who enters in the pickup. That then needs to push and say, hey, Mint person, push that up. Some of you are doing that, traces and phone calls and just literally yelling across the office like, hey, Stacy, push up lead 23. Well, as I'm sure we all know, that gets lost, that gets out of date. As we are going through transitional times like right now, we might have some turnover and those types of things. These processes can get messy. So another report is simply going to be in the system that's going to show you a list of all of the eligible leads, the leads that are ready to be pushed, so you don't have to think as much. So we can identify that report and do it en masse. So we're going to pull, the start information into CRM from Mint. Then we're going to push our leads back into Mint. We're going to push our histories back into Mint. And we'll take a quick look at that live. So the first thing is right off the bat, an easy way to look at it. And of course, we do have detailed training documentation on this, detailed videos on both these subjects, hopefully giving everybody the idea, is we can come in and either look to add a new account. And if we want to pull in the information we've identified through Stacy's search in Mint, well, we're just coming down here to this Mint information box, hitting the ellipsis button, and running a straight query where we can search off the Mint code, which is identified again on Stacy's side, or we can come right through here and we can just start typing in the name of a business, giving you again, showing you the Mint code, the address, the information available in Mint, and I can grab it and I can pull it and we can see that it's pulling that detailed information from Mint. Now, if I was to change some of this information, which I can do in a test shell, well, it may, if the information differs now than what's in Mint, prompt me to review and to push that. Like right here, we see, well, I just added a market segment. There wasn't a market segment in what I pulled. Do I want to push that back up to Mint? I'm going to say it. I feel like the answer is 95, 99% of the time, yes. You are researching. You feel like you have the correct information. And I can tell you having a market segment is better than not. But if you are getting on the phone with them, you're in the process, you're going to know, the most up to date. So we do suggest sending those changes back up to Mint. But once the account has been pulled in, we're going to need a little more information to really start working it, right? We don't have a person to talk to at A+ event. We don't know what kind of meetings they have in the system to start researching it. So when we come down to the bottom and once the account has been linked, we now see that we can either add new contacts or we can simply import the contacts from Mint. Lisa is the contact that's available for this account in Mint. I'm just going to add her into the system and give her a contact type, how we in SimpleView CRM indicate if someone is an active contact or not. Pull it in. Probably a lot easier than copy and pasting. Probably, which we're still seeing with some of the guys because we just don't know about the integration pieces. Well, next, I might come on down the line and see what's up with their profile. Is there any information? Have they held a meeting somewhere else that meets Mint's criteria? And I'll touch on that in a bit. We can see there is one, their National Title I Conference. Going to pull that information in. Now we can see some of those details, but one last step, we're going to come under the profile now. The profile is the general information regarding the National Title I Conference. But what is the history of that event? Has it taken place somewhere in the past? Are they booked somewhere in the future? The last one we hit there is import histories and futures, where we will see just that. Every definite occurrence of this booking, and this is a pretty simple one. There's just one record in there, but we click to pull that in. Now, whether this is transitioning from an admin person who is doing that, where now the sales manager can be involved, the services person can be involved. We've got the account, we've got a contact. We can start sending out our marketing messages, branded templated emails, and tracking that in the system. As we're reaching out and having phone calls and meeting notes, we're having those assigned in the system so we can track our traces. We may want to send them a gift. Hey, Matt, saw you had the meeting down the street last year, 2 years ago. Love to get to know you a little bit better. These are all prospecting pieces, and that's really the point I like to make with Mint a lot. Is it is great for prospecting, but it's also all of these tools that I'm pointing to right now. They are part of your prospecting functionality in your CRM system before really we're even managing the lead. You may spend money on them. You may give them a list of downtown friendly hotels or whatever it might be. And hopefully then we lead up to the point where they say, you know what, you did it. You didn't drive me crazy. And I'd love to see what you have to offer. And I can say this because if you're doing the research, I have seen and we've heard better success, and it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you were to call up A1 Events and say, hey, A1 Events, I realize you're an athletic sports recreation company that has an annual conference that last year was held in Tucson, Arizona with 250 people. You come in with that intelligence instead of asking them, you're in good shape. I also joke about this often, but often Lisa from A1 Events, she has met your company at 10 different trade shows, but you have different people meeting her. So it's the same thing over and over again. Hey, Chris, I've told your company 5 times about my meeting. Well, again, if you can walk into that meeting and spit it back to her, she says, wow, you did the research, or you took the time to learn a little bit about me. It's just a bit of a foot in the door from there. So from there, what happens, though, is hopefully, again, we do manage that lead. We get the lead to the position, if I've got the right one here, maybe not, 1 second, where we are going to then come in underneath my definite lead to mark it as a booking. Sorry, I got a little mixed on mine, 1 second. So once the account and the profile, those have all been synced, we manage the lead. The lead goes definite. Well, we're going to come here to send that definite booking over to Mint. It needs to have a profile. It needs to have more than 25 rooms at peak. It needs to have a contact associated with it. And you're going to simply be able to send that lead right over. But then, like we said, we're going to come back and pick up. For those of you guys who are tracking the actualized numbers once the group has come and gone. Let me come back to my other one here. Oops. Here we go. So now again, the group is come and gone. The idea and the way CRM is designed is that you come back in under that lead. A little slow. And we come under the pickup to enter in the actual number of rooms, the actual room rate, etc., associated with the hotels that won this booking. Once that information has been uploaded and entered, we save the lead. Now we have to push that final method up. And I'm going to talk about one other tool we're adding to make life easier here. So if we come back underneath the profile to the now current history. So again, if I wasn't clear, when a lead goes definite, it becomes a future. Then when the pickup has been entered in, you're coming back underneath that information. I'm sorry, I meant to hit edit. Where we will then be able to make that update. Sorry, I'm hitting the wrong one, I think, every time. But with this same type of a thing, it's a multi-step process, and usually one of those steps is getting lost along the way. So we send Mint information out here. So the idea is that your profile is your prospecting center. Think about whether you're manually building these histories and futures based off your definite bookings and or you are pulling them in from the Mint database. Well, in the end, what you're going to see down here is every occurrence of this meeting, whether it was in your community or another, and the details associated with that meeting, whether it was in your community or another. So with that, again, we want to just make sure that we're hitting all those marks. We want to make sure that we're pushing and we're pulling, that we're hitting our leads in the end. We're pushing them up, and that we're making sure, again, there's the send update lead Mint after the lead has gone booked. And then this is on the profile level when we're sending those final pickup numbers back up. So I don't know if there's any questions out there on Mint. Again, this is one on the CRM side. I can tell you that we have a very detailed book, basically, a little guide on that guy in the knowledge base we will point to in a bit. We also have webinars that walk you through those steps, really step by step. All right. Well, Andreas, why don't we talk a little bit about EIC?
Certainly. Well, I'll start it off. So I always like to kind of kick off when anything I talk about EIC, whether it's trainings or questions, is really sort of fundamentally explaining the philosophy behind why EIC was developed and its intention. And that kind of helps guide the conversation going forward. So really the most important thing for people to understand is that the event impact calculator, and I always have to stress by that, it's the event impact calculator, not the economic impact calculator, is really fundamentally designed around the concept of net new money. So what is net new money as opposed to old money or current money? And I'll use an example with Chris, since Chris, you just alluded to that you are located in Tucson. So, you know, I know you guys aren't going to have it at the end of the month, but every year you guys have your SimpleView Summit. It's been in Phoenix, but 4,000 in Tucson. I love going to the JW. And so when you guys would put on that event, I, as an attendee and guest, would travel from my home state of Maryland to Arizona to Tucson to attend that event. You, Chris, as a native of Tucson, even though you are a SimpleView employee, you are a native of Tucson, will also attend the event. Only one of those two examples is net new money, and that will be mine and not Chris. Even though Chris might be spending some money on food and beverages and that kind of stuff while there, he's still a resident of Tucson. It's not new money coming for this event because of the event. It's really a net new money around visitors. So that would be me. And if you think about that, right? So for me, in order to attend that event, I have to fly, right? I have to house myself and I have to feed myself. All of that is money I'm now spending in the destination that wasn't there before because of this event. And everything else outside of everything else within the calculator is kind of developed around that concept of what is the new money coming to my destination because of this singular event, right? And also, and recognizing that even though Chris might spend money, and that's part of total economic impact, it is not necessarily captured in the net new money calculation of it. The other two important things to kind of highlight, and before we get to the next slide, is that every implementation of an event impact calculation is hyper localized. So when we set it up, we get your local tax data, we get our, through Tourismonomics, all the back end spending data. I always like to point this out. If your bureau have also done your own research in visitor spend dollars, Tourism Economics will actually incorporate that into. So when you see your calculation, that calculation results are really customized and localized for you. And really the last one, the third big one, that kind of stuff, is that it does give a tremendous window into spending habits for different stakeholders that you report to, right? This tool is really not just designed to say to talk internally or even hoteliers. It goes much beyond that. You're given the opportunity to speak to local and political and civic stakeholders with jobs and tax creation, but you can also go further with meeting planners and building revenues and all that kind of stuff with it, to really kind of give a breadth of the different facets of what the calculation can do. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll let you go back, Chris.
You got it. Went slowly, maybe. Okay.
Oh, yes. So 6 current challenges we face. So this is from our side on DI. So this is relating particularly with the COVID-19 challenges. About a little bit over, it seems like forever, but a month and a half ago, we put some surveys out to our members, really trying to look into what are the challenges we all face right now in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it really boiled down to what we determined were 6 current ones that came back from it. And every week, I do have a live survey for this. These challenges change ranking. At 1 week, it might be, simply trying to be a trusted conduit. Another week, it actually might be cutting costs. Another week, it might be how to find and understand recovery planning. EIC has a thread that thrives through a lot of this. A lot of you have had meetings and events that have had to cancel or postpone. EIC is the tool to sort of demonstrate what was that postponement or that loss to your community, right? So when the time does come from when we can recover, you have a plethora of story to tell about, what is it the impact that you share with your community, right? To understand that why a destination organization as CVB is such a community shared value and asset. EIC does help paint one part of that picture for a lot of the stuff that we do in responsibilities. Next slide, please. So I'll let you handle this one, Chris, if you want to. This is on your guys' side.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing here is that every time you make a formula, we're doing it right, it gets added down here into our snapshot record. And so our EIC and our snapshot, those are basically mechanisms that keep a snapshot record of the lead at its current or at a specific time in its life cycle. The idea with that is that can often change. What a client is originally asking for isn't always what is booked, isn't always what actualizes once the pickup goes through. We also see it with Andreas' example with some of these lost and canceled. Well, what they asked for, then what was booked is usually what was canceled. What was on the books is usually what's coming off the books. So we see kind of, those in there. And I know that we've been pretty hard on pushing having it more than one formula. And I think, as Andreas nodding his head up and down a little bit, just simply because you want to be able to measure those nuances and understand the ebbs and flows. When somebody comes back and says, well, you said it was originally worth X, Well, at that point, you may offer a rate. Your hotels may offer a better rate because the client is asking for a larger room block. Then they come back and it goes the other way. We want to be able to describe that to say, well, you know what? In June, they told us it was going to be 500 rooms. And when it was booked, it was only 300 rooms. So these give us the chance to see some of those types of things from a pretty detailed reporting perspective. And then here we're just seeing some of the basic information that gets pulled out once we do create a formula. The average number of attendees per room for a meeting of this type, and then we see the direct business sales, and then the total there as well.
Yeah, if I could pepper in just briefly now.
Yeah, sure.
One of my other common ones is that I always talk about EIC almost with another E, and that's estimated event impact, and that you have the ability to run it multiple times, and you hit it. You said about life cycle of the events, right? If you take a common citywide for a major, destination organization, you really have potentially 4 to 5 instances of when that event changes, right? So if you think about the very first piece of information you get, right, that's a lead, or potentially, or even RFP of that kind of regard, of some basic facts of an event, right? Some base attendance, some base room blocks requested. That's one instance, and you run the calculation, you show what is its estimated event right there. Then let's say it actually goes booked or definite or confirmed in your system. You have a little more information, right? Maybe you firmed up your room night dates, your commitments, the attendance, you run it again. And then let's say, it's a citywide, citywides typically don't contract with hotels until a couple months out before the event actually occurs. There's another instance, right? You're getting your hotel block firmer, tighter, your commitments, rebates stronger. And then then the group actually arrives, it's consumed, it's actualized, and then you get pickup values, actualized attendance. You should have your hosting costs, your exhibitor spend values, your convention center rentals, all that kind of stuff. It's another instance with it. And it's very vital and valuable to see it, because when you really start talking about ROI, right, you have to really understand about this is what this event looked like at the beginning of this, and here's how it looked like at the end. Obviously, the hopeful story is that the direct spend or the total spend or jobs or taxes goes up, but there's a lot of cases where it actually goes down. And it's important to understand and see where did that potentially change. Maybe the group just didn't pick up as much. Okay, the attendance didn't happen, so that's why we trended downward. Other factors that go with it. But you can only do that type of analysis once you get to the level where you are running those multiple type of calculations. It's just important that in any of your documentations, your reporting, you use the lead tags here. Sorry, the EIC tags to differentiate when you're showing EIC. One of the common things in the platform, if you're on the CRM on the base homepage, if you do multiple tags, make sure you update your EEI so lead, definite, actualized. So someone who's just hopping into the CRM at the very beginning shows immediately what the format is. Had that numerous times in my career where I might have 3 or 4 calculations on the EIC tab, but no one's going and looking at it. They're just looking at the main homepage, and then the EEI top type was, and they're pulling up now, but yeah, it wasn't changed. So just to go with that, if you're doing that, do the extra step and also update your homepage on the event itself that showcases it.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Andreas. A couple of those things, I'm going to show you guys some searches, some reports you can use to make sure it stays on track, because we are talking about multiple levels there. But the idea is that when you do have a lead in the system and coming in under just a lead, well, we want to create that first formula. But what happens is when you're building the lead here, I'm just going to edit an existing lead. Well, you should have, everybody has the EEI type field. And inside of that, if you're using the EIC, you should have what are called EIC tags. And what we see here is, for my example, I, for every lead, want to calculate that pre-calculation, that booked calculation, and that post-calculation. So what we're doing here is really what we're setting the current value of the lead. And as we're coming through, well, the first time, well, it's pre-stage because it's on a lead status. We don't know, if we're going to win it or if we're going to lose it, but we want to know what is the potential value to this meeting to our economy. Well, the idea is you're going to build your lead all the way out. And when you save it the first time, you may notice that the value of this lead is $0. That's because we have not yet created that pre-formula. And then think about that as we take the next step. When it goes booked, we will want a booked formula. When it goes pick up and we go post-event, we're going to want a post-event because we want this to, again, match up with the current formula that we're creating down below. So this isn't a pre-stage. I'm simply going to hit new impact calculation. It's going to pull in some of the information from the lead, but not a lot because the system doesn't know exactly which stage are you in. Should I be pulling contracted numbers because you're booked, or what are they called? I can't even remember what they're called right now. The requested numbers. There they are after that. So right up here, that important step is there's that tag. I'm selecting the tag that'll match the field on the lead level, that EIC tag that we selected. They should match. As I start to select these, they will go away. So it makes it a little bit easier. So now let's just take a quick peek at the event parameters. And again, some of this stuff is inside of your lead. We've got tooltips that are showing the DI definition of these in most cases. But you probably don't have to select a location unless you're working at a community for a state that might have multiple levels of access. And don't worry about my dates and those types of things. You guys know how it goes with me. We're just going to save up a little time.
Can I give just a small the end dates, just so people understand? I see it's one common mistake. The start and end date, and you guys have the definition right in there. Those are the start and the end date of the event itself of programming. Those aren't the room block dates. Those aren't, move-in dates. That's actually when programming begins for the event. Just so everyone understands that.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I'll say it again because we have heard that a lot. This doesn't include shoulder dates. So start date, end date of the event. If you think people might come 2 days early and stay a couple days late, the system accounts for those days. So then we see here event type. And this is something that the team at DI, again, they've been adding on to this. I think, was it locals and public events was the most recent?
LPE, local and public events. Your boat shows, your events that traditionally that might be booked by the convention center that might not have any room nights attached to it at all. Sometimes Comic-Cons and things like that. But that's really what they're focused on is it true attendance only based events.
Okay. And then like we've kind of discussed through this, and this is a really good way to, I think, put this into perspective. Well, I'm sure we all know that if it's 4 people attending a sporting event, well, that may not be as worth as much to your community as if it was 4 guys or 4 people attending the Bill Gates Foundation event, something along those lines. It's youth soccer and there's 6 kids in a room and they're eating pizza and they're staying at a lower rated hotel. Well, it's not going to be worth as much as maybe a business meeting. But the system, again, is what's doing that and accounting for it. And to Andreas's point earlier, with the team, the research that's done with your community spending, that's where this really comes into play. As an example, for a business meeting in our community, we average 1.1 persons per room. Well, if I change that to sports and specifically the youth sports, well, then the calculation is taking something different into that. We're thinking, well, youth sports, 2.7 persons per room. So there's a little more to that kind of stuff behind the scenes, but the idea is there are different daily spends. There are different spends in different areas, depending on what type of meeting it might be, depending on whether the meeting space is taking place inside of a hotel or outside of a hotel. We see just some basic information if we want to track our overnight visitors as opposed to those domestic internationally, the number of day visits, the projected room rate.
Chris, would you mind if I kind of give a definition of the 3,
Sure.
the visitors, the day, and the local?
Sure.
Because that's another one on our end, and maybe you guys see it too about confusion on what they are. So
yeah, go for it.
Overnight visitors, the definition is basically people who come to this event and stay at least one night. And that definition is in there on the question mark next to it. So that there's a couple different ways to calculate that. One is, if you have previous research that gives an estimate of people who come to your events, how many people are staying the night. Another way to do it is one that I like, but it's very conservative, is if you think about a hotel room block, what is the value that represents the most people staying at least one night? It's the peak room night number. So you could very simply take the peak room night and times it by your persons per room is another way to do it. And the kind of final way, the most accurate way, but you're not doing this till the very end, is some type of attendance analysis, where you're truly looking at how many people came who are not local to it. Day visits and then local share of day visitors. So if you have your total attendance and you have your overnight, day visitors is basically the amount of people who are coming to the conference and are only staying for the day over the length of the event. Right, so let's take the Simple View Summit again. Let's take Chris for this example. Simply View Summit is, this is, I think, I can't remember, sorry, 3 days. So Chris would be someone who's not spending the night. So he's having, maybe breakfast at home, dinner at home. Well, you guys work 1 hour or so, but just stay with me here. But you're going home, you're spending a night in your own room, you're not renting a hotel and that kind of stuff. And you come back every day, right? So Chris would be a day visitor, and his length of his event is 3 days, right? So that's kind of clarifying. And an easy way to figure that out is sort of by deduction, right? If you know your total attendance and you know your overnight visitors, the subtraction then would be your day visits. And then the final one, local share. Those are those people who are day visitors who are also locals to the same destination where it's happening, right? And the reason why is because the calculation is looking at those and saying, okay, all these locals aren't net new money. Your income taxes, your property values, that sort of stuff, that's already built into the community at large. It's not new because of this event. And again, you can see that these are optional values. The calculation does have estimates pre-built in for it, so you're not required to fill it in. But as you start progressing and doing multiple implementations of it, you start doing really attendance breakdowns. You have the ability to customize these and put these in to get a more, get further along the calculations with more accuracy.
That's great. It's all really interesting information. Again, I know that's a lot, so we do have this stuff pretty well documented, I think, on both sides. You know what I mean? If you guys do need those straight definitions, but that definitely clears things up a little bit for me. And I guess to that point, just because it defaults to something, we'll see a little bit further down, you can overwrite those things. But then we get into hosting costs, and these are the costs, that it takes to win this piece of business. And you may be, at this phase, not spending anything because we're in the very initial, phase. But as you guys start committing to things, as you start tracking in-kind and expenses, that information gets pulled in here, but you can manually add those numbers in as well. And then if we come a little bit further down, well, we really start to see a little bit of the reporting, I think, a glance at it to start giving you an idea. We see the organizer spending section. Well, based on the information up above, the system does show the default. So based on the numbers up above, the system is saying, well, this organization will pay $11,129 for audiovisual. If you have different numbers, you can punch those types of things in. And I think those are some of the numbers that can be a little bit of a trick to get. So the defaults really come in handy there. Down below, same type of an idea. We're seeing your local tax rates, state rates, local tax rates, sales tax, bed tax, etc. So that when we see here in the end, the report is going to use those defaults to calculate all this information to give us some really impressive numbers for our team. We do want to make sure we're saving it. The saving it, this is going to send that information back over to the DI crew. And when we save that implementation, we have a pre-formula, and it's going to push me right to this big report. And take this report, and again, this is something we'll show a little bit more, and I know we're getting a little bit short on time, but the core report that's built in the system, this is showing the information in a lead status for this specific event. We're seeing the dates, the time, etc. Now we're starting to see the direct and total business sales, so the value to your economy. We're seeing things like the number of jobs supported, taxes generated. But if we get a little bit further down, this really takes it the next step. And again, we mentioned a few of these things, but now we're seeing the attendee spending, organizer spending, exhibitor, and total event. We're seeing how that spending is distributed via market inside of your community. So how much money is this potentially worth to your restaurants, your hotel, your space, your retail, etc.? Now I'm going to just quickly segue out of this because many of you who are using the EIC effectively don't have great cumulative reports that are pulling in multiple leads to show you guys averages over a year. What's the average lodging spend for our sporting events in the downtown community? We can build reports that show you that. So think about this in a way that can be sliced up, put together, to show your data, again, accumulating in math. How did we do last year for the retail sector? How did we do last year for our space in general? And as we come further down, we see, well, how that information is then broken out by sales sector. So how much are the visitors spending in these different sectors, the organizers, etc. Come a little bit further down. Now we're seeing all that great tax information, number of jobs supported, income driven in there, bed tax, restaurant tax, all that good stuff. and then just some additional statistics down below. Well, I can simply print this. I can hit modify to go back to the previous step if I need to play with some of those numbers. But if I come back over to the lead now, what we're going to have is the total value of that lead. This is in a lead status and attached to the pre-formula. And if I come down the EIC, well, we see that first record. Well, if this event goes booked, well, what the first step that most of us get right is we want this to go to our booking reports. So we add it into our booked piece of business. It's a definite booking. There it is. We come down and we complete the rest of the information. We add in the contracted information. We add in the selected hotel. But we need to make sure we are now aligning the lead with the status, a new EIC tag. Because again, the contracted numbers may have been better than they were when they were originally requested. So excuse me, I knew I had to enter that contracted info. I tried to skip on without it, save time, usually how it goes. So once we get down in here, all I'm doing is completing the lead. I'm entering in the contracted room block with all booked information. And then I'm going to come back and create a formula for that definite booking. Then I need to come back in as the lead goes through the pickup process and create that third booking, or that third formula, I should say. And this is all close enough. But what happens here is now that the lead went definite, again, I made sure that I'm flipping that to a new status, a new EIC tag. And when I save it, though, what's going to happen is the lead is now going to be with $0 because I don't have a booked formula associated with the lead. So I'm going to go down below and I'm going to create that booked formula. I don't need to go through all the steps. So we'll just hit it pretty quick. And we create the second for the booking. We create the third once pickup is included there as well. And again, at this point, we might have slightly different numbers. There may have been changes made. There may have been a different contracted room rate. Now you have more hosting costs because that's just the natural process there. We save it. We have a second inquiry down below in the EIC tab so we can report off those nuances. We have a new full-blown report. So now one last time for today's example, if we look back at the lead, we now would see, I'm sorry, I missed something there, it's my refreshing, the booked value. And we would see down here the EIC, I'm having some weird save issues, everything's going real slow. And we would see down here those different values down below. That's what I did, sorry. I tried to go too fast. I missed the tag. The other spot that people miss it is right up here at the top. What formula are we creating? And as we can see, the pre is gone because we already created that. Now I create the book, and now my lead will look accurate. And then it leaves me just one last EIC tag to run that third and final formula to get me that number there as well, including pickup. And there it is. So we see it's a little bit lower. I changed a few small things in there, but now we can see when it was in a lead status, it was worth X. When it then went to a book status, it was worth Y. That third entry, and I'll show the slide again, is when it then goes through the pickup phase, and that is this guy here. So that being said, coming back into the deck here, if we come back to our changes that we're looking to make, I'm sorry, that wasn't in this one, that's this one. We're just seeing, again, those event parameters. If you need to make any adjustments, it pulls in the default to default. Of course, if you need to adjust, you can. Got good definitions of all those fields, either in the tooltips there or in the knowledge base. You can either choose to use the defaults, and if you're using the defaults, you don't have to type anything in. You can see the cost total up down below, but of course, if you know better, you can enter those things in. And then the report, this is what it's all about, is the reporting that comes out of it. I can tell you from history in the restaurant industry, these are things that I would love to know. How much value are you bringing into my industry, into my region? How much did, unfortunately, we lose in value, jobs supported, taxes, etc., in my region, in my sector, because of, COVID, the experience we're going through right now? So I'm going to close, and of course, if you guys have any questions, just showing two quick reports, because there is a pretty good core report built into the system. But think about working with your CRM analyst. If you want to take this to the next level and add some additional reports in there, the team can help put together some examples for you. This is the monthly summary report. And this one I had to show really live because of the way that it runs and it stretches out. I'm going to go back to just the beginning of the year. And what we're going to see here is this is pulling in every event that's taking place during the date range up above. We see a brief summary over here, including totals at the bottom, showing the numbers for each individual lead, mostly info pulling right out of the lead. But now we see the EIC data for each lead and total so far for this year, number of jobs directly and indirectly supported. Think about another filter that can refine that by market segment. Let me see how many jobs were supported from the automotive industry over the past 18 months. Sales, income, taxes collected, bed tax, property, federal, state taxes, etc. So we're really just scratching the surface with the reporting and these quick examples that we had time to show you guys. But if you are using the EIC, there are a few searches that your analyst can help. I can help, reach out to myself. We'll leave you guys some numbers here at the end. But this is an example of a search that I run every time I come out to a destination. Because what I need to find out is, are you using your EIC correctly? And this is often what we see, is that some leads are left with no value. Because sometimes they don't have the correct tag. Like in this example, well, the EEI type is set to, we got some of these that like these set to pre, but it's in a book status. Well, then you're not going to get a value. The lead doesn't match the tag. In some cases, we look at these and they say, well, yeah, it's booked, but in a definite status. And we come back underneath that lead. And yeah, the EIC might be there with the right tag and the status might be in the right tag, but somebody simply forgot to create that formula. There's no formula for that one. So there's no value to this definite booking. So again, we can help split these searches out in a lot of different ways, but I think the most important thing to understand is that if it was a booking, well, it has a value, right? It was worth something to your community. So an easy way to start your cleanup is when we run something like this, and it's usually by date range, when did you purchase or start using the EIC? We start to make those connections. And then your analyst should be able to help you clean this stuff up and right the ship. So I know that was a lot, and like I said, not a lot of time to go into deep dive into those things. But Andreas, do you have anything to add there?
No, just thank you guys for having me on. A small plug, we on the DI side, if you guys have further questions, in addition to your Salem analyst, we have every Friday an open office hours with me and Chris Pike from Towards Economics, who do like the really true nitty gritty, I got a specific lead, how do I do it type questions, almost like, where your tax accountants will do your taxes for you. So if you guys have further questions, we're happy to help answer them to get the best out of it. We know times like this, especially this tool is sort of vital and really being a link in towards our community and what our efforts do. So we're happy to help continue to support in any way we can for all of you out there.
That's awesome. And I know you guys are putting out a lot of good information and you got your webinars going, strong and all those types of things. So, and then just keep, your CRM team in line, not access your portal where we've got webinars that walk through both of these EIC admin processes, pretty good detail. We've got great documentation, but again, you guys all have a dedicated CRM analyst. You should have access. Again, most of you guys, a lot of familiar faces out there. So you probably have my email address, cgeorge@simpleviewinc.com. Mint-specific questions can be directed to Stacy. Anything else, additional, of course, you got Andreas there to talk to, but let us know. We can schedule some live trainings with you guys. And I'll say this now because I do optimistically hope that we are looping our way through this. Training is available for your entire staff online or in person coming up in the very near future. We do have our learning management system available to your staff as well. So we know this is a very stressful time, but it also might be a time to get our team up to speed and educated on all Simple Views tools so that when we see the light, we can again come blazing out the other side. So very cool. Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, Andreas. And thanks everybody out there. We appreciate it. Stay safe and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.